The desert winds howled across the planet Sandoranine, lifting dust into the sky and painting everything a pale orange. The sun above was harsh, and there was no shelter for miles. The land was quiet, except for the weak sound of crackling metal. A small alien shuttle had crashed only hours ago, its engine still smoking and its body bent and broken inside the wreck. An alien mother named Lorani held her baby close to her chest. Her skin was soft and green with leaf-like patterns. Eyes once bright were now dull from pain and worry. She belonged to the Sulari species, a peaceful group who lived close to nature and rarely traveled off their homeworld. But war had come to their world. She had fled with her newborn daughter. Lorani's shuttle had been hit by something, she didn't know what. Alarms had screamed, the sky had spun, and then everything went black. She woke up. The ship was broken, her body bruised, and her baby crying in hunger. She tried to feed her child, but nothing came. Her milk was gone. Her body was too weak, too dry. She had not eaten or drunk anything since the crash. The baby cried harder. Lorani rocked her gently, singing soft sounds in her language. But she knew the truth. If nothing changed soon, her baby would die. She pressed a shaking finger to the emergency beacon and hoped someone would hear. She had little faith. The Sulari had no allies nearby. She was deep in unknown space. Her voice was almost gone when she whispered, "Please, someone help." Why away, at a human research outpost built near the edge of the Sandoranine desert. Technician Ethan Carver was checking his systems when he heard the soft ping of a signal. He leaned closer. It was weak, almost lost in static. But it was real, Commander, he called. There's a distress signal coming from the south sector. It's not one of ours. Ignore it, the voice replied. Storms are coming in. We can't risk a full team. Ethan looked back at the screen. It blinked slowly, almost like a heartbeat. Someone out there was calling for help. He couldn't. Just sit there, grabbing a small rover and a survival pack, he said. I'm going alone. If I don't return by nightfall, send a drone. The journey across the desert was rough. Winds pushed against his suit, and sand filled the air like smoke. But after hours of driving, he saw something shiny in the distance. The broken shuttle. He parked the rover and walked slowly, hand on his sidearm just in case. The shuttle looked alien, strange lines and symbols on its side. The door was broken, half hanging off its frame. Inside it was quiet, too quiet then. He heard it a soft whimper. Like a baby. He stepped inside, flashlight sweeping the dark corners. In the corner of the wreck, a figure moved. Lorani pulled herself upright, body trembling, holding her baby close. Ethan froze. The alien mother looked scared, but her eyes begged for help. He spoke gently. It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm human. Lorani couldn't understand his words, but she saw the kindness in his face. Slowly, she lifted her baby toward him. The infant was pale and weak, its cries almost silent now. Ethan saw the baby, and his heart tightened. Oh no, you're starving, aren't you? He reached into his bag and pulled out a thermal blanket, wrapping it around both mother and child. Lorani didn't resist. She was too tired. He gave her water from his pack, helping her sip carefully. She drank greedily, then offered the bottle to her baby, who could not drink it. She needs food, Ethan said, thinking fast, but not this. He looked around. He couldn't carry them both back across the desert. They needed shelter now. He returned to his rover, pulled out a pop-up tent, and set it up next to the wreck. Then he brought Lorani and her baby into it, laying them on a mat. The baby cried again, weaker than before. Ethan searched his supplies. He had emergency nutrition packs, but none were made for alien infants. Still, one packet was meant for human babies, made with simple ingredients. It was a small chance. He mixed the liquid gently and held the spoon to the baby's mouth. The child didn't move at first, but then, slowly, she sipped. Lorani watched, eyes wide. Ace. When her baby swallowed and let out a tiny sound of relief, she covered her mouth and tears slipped down her cheeks. Ethan smiled, his heart full. You're going to be okay, he whispered. I promise. The sun began to set outside, casting golden light on the desert. The storm still blocked communication, but Ethan didn't care. He had food, water, and shelter. And he had 2 lives depending on him. He stayed awake that night, checking the baby's breath, giving Lorani more water, and keeping the fire warm. Lorani couldn't speak his language, but her eyes followed him everywhere. In those eyes, Ethan saw a single message clear as day. Hope had returned. Night passed slowly on the desert planet. Wind pushed against the small tent, making it shake gently. Inside, Ethan sat beside Lorani and her baby, feeding the infant small sips every hour. He was tired, his back ached, but he refused to sleep. Not yet. Lorani watched him with quiet eyes. She didn't understand his words, but she understood his actions. Every time her baby cried, he was there. Every time she grew weak from thirst, he helped her drink. His hands were careful, his eyes were calm. In her world, such kindness from a stranger was rare. By morning, the baby had stopped crying. She was breathing softly and had color returning to her small face. Lorani held her close and closed her eyes for the first time in days. She whispered a soft word in her language that meant thank you. Though she knew he wouldn't understand, Ethan stepped outside the tent and checked the sky. The storm clouds were still thick, and dust hung in the air. Signal tower was still useless. He tapped his comms device, but nothing worked. "Come on," he muttered. "Just 1 bar. Anything." Silence. He looked back at the tent. Guess we're still alone? He returned to the wrecked shuttle and looked through. Its broken storage compartments. Most of it was ruined, but he found a few tools and a half-charged power cell. He also spotted a small object, a glowing cube with spinning symbols. When he touched it, a hologram floated above it, showing images of Lorani's home planet Green. Forests, rivers flowing through mountains. Creatures walking peacefully, then flashes of fire, warships in the sky, and Sulari running. "So you were escaping," Ethan whispered. "You and the baby." Brought the cube back to the tent and showed it to Lorani. She gasped when she saw it. She reached out and gently touched the hologram of her home. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she smiled too. She placed the cube next to her baby, as if hoping the child would remember that peaceful world. Ethan sat beside her. "You must miss your people," he said softly. "You lost everything." Lorani looked at him. Slowly, she placed her hand over her heart, then touched his shoulder. She repeated it twice. Ethan blinked. "What does that mean?" he asked. She did it again, hand to heart, then a shoulder. He thought for a moment. "Does that mean heart friend? Protector?" Lorani gave a small nod. Ethan smiled. "I'll take that." He opened his pack and pulled out a small translation device. It wasn't perfect, but maybe it could help. He pointed to himself. "Ethan." Lorani looked confused at first, then repeated slowly, "E." Then he pointed to her. "She." Placed her hand on her chest. "Lorani." "Lorani," Ethan repeated. Her name sounded soft and beautiful. They practiced simple words together. Food, baby, water. Friendly Lorani listened carefully. Her species communicated more with feeling and touch, but she tried. Baby slept peacefully now, wrapped in the thermal blanket, warmed by the tent's small heater. That afternoon, Ethan went to work building a better shelter. He added support to the tent, used parts from the shuttle to make a windbreak, and set up a cooking device. Lorani, gaining strength, helped him where she could. She handed him tools and pointed to useful parts of the wreck. He was impressed. She understood machines, even if her way of working was different, as the sun lowered again. They shared a small meal-a-thon's rations and some dried fruit from Lorani's emergency bag. They sat together eating in silence, while the baby made soft cooing sounds. "We need to last a few more days," Ethan said. "Rescue will come. It has to." But that night, the temperature dropped sharply. The wind howled louder, and the heater began to fail. Ethan checked the power cell. It was almost empty. Lorani wrapped her baby tightly and shivered. Ethan gave her his coat, then added extra insulation to the tent walls, using fabric from the shuttle. Still, it wasn't enough. Think, Ethan, he said to himself. You've got to keep them warm. He had one last idea. He climbed into the rover and opened its heating system. He rerouted power from its drive engine into a long coil, then placed it beneath the tent floor. The rover would be useless for travel now, but the heat might save lives. When the warmth returned, Lirani let out a deep breath. Her baby stopped shaking. Ethan collapsed beside them, exhausted but relieved in the dark. Lirani leaned forward and placed her hand gently over Ethan's. No words were needed. The next day, Lirani began speaking more, not in full sentences, but with more confidence. She pointed to the baby. Sorry. Ethan smiled. Her name is Sorry? Lirani nodded. Double quotes, beautiful name, he said. Hello, Sorry. The baby smiled for the first time. Her small hand reached for him and touched his chin. Ethan laughed softly. Hey there, little one. Lirani watched the moment quietly. Great. Her fears had started to fade. She had thought humans were dangerous, cold creatures, that this one had given warmth, food, and life. He had stayed up for nights just to keep her daughter alive. That evening, they saw lights in the sky flashes that looked like falling stars. Ethan used his scanner and found nothing, but he wasn't sure what they were. Maybe debris? Other travelers, whatever it was, he knew they had to stay hidden. Not everyone in this galaxy was kind. He placed extra cover over the tent and hid the rover under sand. They would wait. They would survive. And Ethan would protect them with everything. He had. 3 days had passed since Ethan found Lirani and her baby. Every day brought new challenges, but also small moments of hope. The baby, Sorry, was stronger now. She cried less and looked around with curious eyes. Lirani smiled more often, her face no longer full of fear. And Ethan, though tired, was happy to see them getting better. Ethan had set a simple routine. Every morning, he checked the sky and tried the comms device. Every afternoon, he hunted for useful parts in the shuttle. And every evening, he shared a warm meal with Lirani. They didn't speak the same language fully, but they understood each other more with every passing day. On the 4th morning, Lirani stepped outside the tent for the first time. The sun hit her face, and she took a deep breath. Her body was still weak, but she wanted to help. She watched Ethan work with his tools and pointed toward a bundle of wires he had ignored. She picked them up and began to untangle them with care. Ethan looked over and raised an eyebrow. You know what that is? Lirani smiled slightly. Power. Connect. Clean. He laughed. Yes, that's right. They worked together for hours. She showed him how Sulari used energy differently, how their machines followed natural rhythms. Ethan showed her how human tools focused on speed and strength. Together, they found a middle path. Sorry sat in a small cradle made from scrap, wrapped in blankets. She giggled now and then, her tiny fingers grabbing at floating dust. Her laughter gave both of them strength. That afternoon, Ethan taught Lirani how to say more human words. She repeated after him slowly. Water. Safe. Thank you. Then she pointed to him. Ethan. He smiled and nodded. Then she pointed to herself. Lirani? They both laughed softly. Though different in many ways, they had become a team. Later, they shared a small meal. Ethan handed her dried fruit, and Lirani offered a paste from her supplies that tasted sweet and calming. As they ate, they heard a soft beep from the comms device. Ethan rushed to it. The signal was weak, but it was there something moving in orbit. Not a rescue ship, something else. He frowned. Not ours. Lirani stepped closer. Danger? I don't know. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He kept the heater low, the lights dim, and listened to every sound outside. The desert was quiet. Too quiet. He felt something in his gut, a warning he couldn't ignore. By morning, the sky had changed. A small dark dot floated high above, moving slowly. Ethan scanned it. It wasn't human. Wasn't Sulari either. He turned to Lirani. We need to be ready. She nodded, already holding Sorry close. Ethan spent the day hiding anything that could give away their location. The rover was buried deeper, the tent covered in sand-colored sheets. He built smoke traps with dried plants that Lirani provided. They were ready just in case, By evening, they saw it. A small ship landing in the distance. It wasn't a rescue. Ethan raised his scope and looked through it. 3 figures stepped out. Tall, armored, weapons on their backs. Scavengers. He cursed under his breath. They're not here to help. Lorani held Sari tight. Fight, run? You can't run, Ethan said. You can't move far. The baby she's not strong enough, he thought quickly. They had only one chance. They had to stay hidden and quiet. And if found, they had to defend themselves. The scavengers moved closer, laughing and kicking the sand. Ethan and Lorani crouched behind a dune, Sari in a covered basket beside them. Ethan had a flare gun, some stun charges, and a homemade flash bomb. Lorani had sharp plant thorns soaked in natural oil. When the scavengers reached the wreck, they tore it apart for anything valuable. One of them shouted, "Someone's been here. Look, tracks." They began moving toward the tent, Ethan whispered now. He triggered the smoke trap. Thick white mist exploded from behind the rocks, confusing the scavengers. Then he tossed the flash bomb. It flashed bright, and 2 scavengers dropped their weapons in surprise. Ethan charged. Using the stun charge on the closest one, Lorani appeared beside him, throwing her thorn weapon into the second scavenger's arm. The last one pointed a weapon toward her. Before he could fire, Ethan tackled him to the ground and hit him hard with a metal pipe. The fight was rough, fast, and full of dust and shouting. When it was over, the 3 scavengers were tied with wires, groaning in pain. Ethan's hands were cut. Lorani's arm was bruised, but Sari was untouched, still asleep inside the tent. They stood over the captives. Lorani asked, "More come?" Ethan shook his head. "Don't think so, but we stay alert." They moved the scavengers far from the tent and left a warning sign in the sand using alien and human symbols. "Do not return." That night, Lorani sat beside Ethan and wrapped a soft cloth around his bleeding hand. She used a mix of herbs and paste to stop the pain. He winced, but didn't pull away. "You saved us," Lorani said quietly. Again, Ethan smiled. "We saved each other." Sari woke and made a soft, happy sound. She reached toward both of them. Lorani held her gently, then passed her to Ethan. He held the baby, careful and warm. Sari giggled, touching his nose. "You've got a strong little heart," he whispered. Lorani watched them. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. The sky over Sandoranine had changed. The wind was slower, the sun a little kinder. It had been nearly a week since Ethan had found Lorani and her baby, Sari. The small shelter they built beside the broken shuttle still stood strong, a symbol of survival and trust between 2 different worlds. After the scavenger attack, Ethan and Lorani had stayed on alert. They took turns keeping watch at night. Every sound in the distance made them pause, but no one else came. For now it was quiet. Ethan repaired the comms device again and climbed a dune to try sending a stronger signal. The wind scratched at his face, but he kept working. He boosted the signal with one of the scavenger's stolen parts and attached it to a metal rod. Then he pressed the button. A weak blinking light showed up on the screen. "Come on, someone hear us," he said. Softly, he climbed back down and returned to the tent. Lorani sat beside Sari, feeding her carefully with the small mix Ethan had created using filtered water and bits of soft fruit. Sari had grown stronger. Her eyes followed movement now, and she made happy sounds whenever she saw Ethan. Lorani looked up as he entered. "Signal, maybe," Ethan said. "It's better than before. Someone could pick it up." Lorani smiled. "Yes," he said. Hope. That afternoon, they both worked to gather more water. Ethan had found a dry, streamed, and built a filter system. Lorani used her plant knowledge to find hidden roots that held moisture. Together, they created a water sack out of cloth and sealed it with melted metal from the shuttle. "You'd make a good engineer," Ethan joked. Lorani looked confused. "Engineer? Builder? Fixer? Smart one," she laughed softly. "You. Smart too." Ethan grinned. "I'll take that." They sat by the fire that night, watching the stars. Lorani pointed at one of them. "Home," she said. Ethan looked at the sky. "You miss your people?" She nodded. Many gone. Maybe some live. If they do, Ethan said, they'll want to hear what you did. How you kept your daughter safe. How you fought off raiders. Lorani looked at Sari and then at Ethan. Not alone. You help. Always. They fell silent for a while. The fire crackled. Sari slept peacefully, her tiny hand holding a corner of Ethan's coat. But peace didn't last. In the early hours of the morning, the comms device blinked. Again. This time, it wasn't a message, just a signal. Someone was nearby. Ethan checked it carefully. The ID code was unfamiliar. Not human. Not Sulari, he whispered. He woke Lorani quietly. She sat up, alert. Danger. We hide, Ethan said. They quickly moved the supplies into a hidden cave nearby, one they had discovered a few days before. It wasn't deep, but enough to stay out of sight from there. They watched the sky. Another ship appeared, sleek, dark and silent. It hovered above the wreck and then landed slowly. Two figures stepped out wearing black armor, their helmets, smooth and shining. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Bounty hunters. Lorani's face went pale. They hunt Sulari. For coin? Why? Ethan asked. Some believe we carry rare seeds, worth much. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. And they'll take Sari too. Yes, Lorani whispered. They don't care, baby or not. They watched as the hunters scanned the wreck and moved closer to the hidden tent. One of them touched the heater device Ethan had made. He spoke in a strange language, then pointed toward the ground. Ethan knew time was short. He pulled out the last of his tools, one flash device, 2 smoke bombs, and a small blaster with limited charge. Stay with Sari, he told Lorani. No matter what. Lorani shook her head. We together? He hesitated, then nodded. They crept around the side of the cave, moving behind rocks. When they were close enough, Ethan threw the smoke bomb. Thick gray mist spread quickly, making the hunters cough and move apart. Lorani used a thorn blade, again hitting one in the leg. The hunter fell, shocked. Ethan rushed the other with the blaster, fired once, hitting the helmet, but the armor took most of the hit. They struggled, falling into the sand, rolling. Lorani grabbed the blaster and aimed. Stop, she shouted. The hunter froze. Ethan stood slowly, panting. Good aim. They tied the hunters with metal ropes from the wreck. Then, using the shuttle's leftover power, they activated a beacon. This time it used the hunter ship's system to send a clear signal. Within minutes, another light blinked on the comms device. Human patrol detected. Arrival, 2 hours. Ethan dropped to the ground, laughing with relief. They're coming. Real help this time. Lorani held Sari close. Safe. Yes, he said. You're safe. The 2 hours passed slowly, but no one else came. The human patrol ship finally landed. A group of soldiers stepped out. They looked at Ethan, Lorani, and the baby in surprise. We got your signal, one said. We didn't expect. It's a long story, Ethan replied. But first help. The baby needs care. As the soldiers took Lorani and Sari aboard, the commander turned to Ethan. You saved them? Ethan nodded. Tried my best, and you've done something amazing. Ethan watched Lorani walk into the ship, Sari still in her arms. The wind blew softly now, and the sun was gentle. He had kept his promise. The human patrol ship lifted slowly into the air, leaving behind the dusty sands of Sandoranine. Inside, Lorani sat on a soft medical bed, holding Sari close. The baby was calm now, wrapped in warm cloth, her eyes blinking at the new world around her. After so many days of fear, she was finally safe. Ethan sat nearby, his arms resting on his knees, eyes watching both of them. He had a few small cuts on his face and hands, but he didn't complain. He felt light, like a heavy weight had finally been lifted. A nurse walked over and checked Sari's vitals. She's weak, the nurse said gently, but she'll recover. You did well, Ethan. I just didn't want her to die, Ethan said softly. And I wasn't going to let her mother watch that happen. Lorani looked at Ethan and gave him a slow nod. She pointed to her heart, then touched his chest again, giving him the same sign she had used before. Heart protector. "Welcome," Ethan replied, smiling. The patrol ship wasn't large, but it was clean, warm, and filled with the sound of safety. Ethan had been offered a rest bunk, but he chose to stay close to Lorani and Sari. He didn't want them to feel alone, not after everything they had been through. As the ship flew toward the nearest human medical station, Lorani tried to speak more in English. She still struggled with full sentences, but her voice was steady. "Your world always like this?" "No," Ethan replied. "Not always. It's many hard things, but some people try to do good." Lorani nodded slowly. Good. They didn't need many words. Their bond had been built in silence, through actions and small kindnesses. Every glance, every shared breath, held meaning. A few hours later, the ship docked at a clean spaceport. Doctors were already waiting. They gently took Sari and ran a full scan. She fussed a little, but her energy was better. Doctor smiled. "She's a fighter, like her mom." Lorani was taken to a resting room. She didn't want to be apart from her baby, but the staff promised Sari would be brought back soon. They just needed to finish some checks. Ethan followed closely, making sure Lorani felt safe. He sat outside her room, watching people walk past humans in white coats, assistants, security officers. No one had any idea what had happened on Sandoranine. No one knew what it had taken to keep that little life alive. The base commander, a tall woman with short brown hair, came to meet him. "Ethan. Carver, right?" She asked. "Yes, ma'am. We reviewed your signal. We got the full report. Scavenger attack, alien mother and child. And you fought off bounty hunters?" "With help," Ethan said. "She was braver than me." The commander crossed her arms. "You risked everything. Went out alone. Survived storms. Saved 2 lives. We don't see that every day." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't do it for medals. We know," she said. "But Command still wants to speak with you. And the Sulari Council has already reached out." "They're alive?" he asked quickly. "Some of them, scattered but alive. When they heard a human saved a Sulari child, they couldn't believe it." Ethan looked down. "They should know. Their people are still strong." Lorani never gave up. Later that evening, Sari was brought back to her mother. The reunion was quiet but full of love. Lorani cried softly as she held her daughter again. Ethan stood in the doorway watching. The nurse looked at him. "You're part of her family now, you know?" Ethan chuckled. "Funny how life works." The next day, a message arrived from the Sulari. It was a short video. A group of their kind stood together, speaking their language. Subtitles translated the words, "To the human who protected one of our own, we offer our deepest thanks. Actions will be remembered. Our stars shine brighter because of you." Lorani showed Ethan the message. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leaf-shaped charm. It shimmered with a soft light. "Gift," she said. "From my people, you carry it." Ethan took it carefully. "Thank you." A few days passed. Sari grew stronger. Lorani began eating more, walking without help. Ethan finally accepted a bunk and got proper rest. But even as his body recovered, his thoughts stayed with the small tent on Sandoranine. The heat, the struggle, and the bond that had formed between 3 lives. On the 5th day, Lorani came to him with a quiet request. "Where?" "You go after this?" Ethan shrugged. "I don't know. Back to the research station, maybe. Back to fixing machines?" Lorani hesitated. "You come with us?" Ethan looked surprised. "With you, my people? Fine place. Build again. We need heart like yours." He thought about it. Desert, the cold nights, the baby's soft cries, the laughter, the danger, the friendship. Everything. And he smiled. "Okay," he said. "Let's see your world." The stars shined brighter now. It had been 3 weeks since Lorani and her daughter Sari were rescued from the desert world. The human patrol ship had returned to orbit, but Ethan was no longer just a technician from a lonely station. He had become something more. The Sulari transport arrived quietly. It was an organic-looking ship, shaped like a leaf floating through space. Its walls were made of living material that glowed gently with green and gold light. Lirani smiled as she saw it dock. She had not seen her people's design in many weeks, and the sight brought comfort. Ethan stood beside her, and sorry as the ship's doors opened. 3 Sulari elders stepped out, their long robes flowing like river plants. They spoke softly in their language, bowing their heads toward Lirani, and then to Ethan. One elder placed his hand over his chest and spoke through a small translator. "We welcome the Protector, the one who saved the seed of our future." Ethan gave a small nod. "I didn't do it alone. She fought just as hard, yes," the elder said. "But together, you made a new path." The humans allowed Ethan to board the Sulari vessel. He didn't know what to expect. Everything inside, the ship felt alive. The lights pulsed gently, the air smelled like rain and leaves, and soft music played without any clear source. Sari giggled the moment she entered, waving her tiny hands at the glowing walls. As the ship left the spaceport and moved through the stars, Ethan sat with Lirani near a pool of clear water. She touched its surface, and it showed images from her past fields, rivers. A tall tree where her people used to gather. "This is your home?" Ethan asked. "Was," she replied. "But we find new place now," the Sulari elders explained. Their plan. They had found a quiet moon rich in soil and safe from enemies. Many of their kind were already rebuilding. They hoped to make it a new beginning for their people. "We need healers," one elder said. "We need builders." "Need those with strong hearts?" Lirani looked at Ethan. "You come?" It looked at her. At Sari now, asleep in her arms. "If you'll have me, I'll stay." The journey took 3 days. When they arrived, the new Sulari colony was unlike anything Ethan had seen before. Tall green towers grew from the ground like trees. Bridges made of vines moved with the wind. Flowers opened as people walked by, releasing soft lights. Everything felt peaceful. Ethan was given a small round house made from living wood. It shaped itself around him, creating rooms where needed. Lirani's home was close by. Sari would often crawl across the short grass to reach him, smiling and laughing. Days turned into weeks. Ethan learned to work with Sulari tools. He taught him how to shape metal with sound, how to grow walls instead of building them, and how to listen to the soil. He taught them how to reinforce power systems, how to build weather sensors, and how to protect their settlement from future danger. He and Lirani spent many evenings together. He spoke more clearly now, her English improving, and his understanding of Sulari words growing too. "You miss Earth?" she asked once. Sometimes he replied, but not like before. "Why?" "Because I found something better." She looked at him with kind eyes. "You stay? Not just for work?" Ethan paused, then nodded. "No, not just for work. For family." Sari walked over on shaky legs and hugged his leg, picked her up and held her gently. "She calls you something," Lirani said with a smile. "What is it, Mari?" she said. "Means safe branch, one that never breaks." Ethan blinked, his throat tight. "That's beautiful." Lirani reached out and took his hand. "You are part of our tree now." Under the twin moons of the Sulari colony, Ethan, Lirani, and Sari sat together in the grass. The wind was gentle, the stars above endless. Music drifted from the village center as Sulari gathered around a glowing pool. They told stories there every night of old times, lost friends, and now. New Hope's story was about a mother who crashed in the desert, her child starving, and the human who found them. The elder told it slowly, letting every word settle in the listeners' hearts. "He did not bring war," the elder said. "He brought water, he brought hands, he brought fire, but not to burn to warm. And from that fire, new life grew." Ethan sat quietly, holding Sari, while Lirani leaned against him. The story wasn't just about him. It was about all of them. A life had been saved, a family had formed, and 2 very different worlds had become one.